Peace and blessings, abundant souls. Welcome to this episode of the Abundantly Ever After show. I'm your host, Giovanna Tisdale, and today we're going to be talking about closure. This is something that gets so many of us fucked up, especially when it comes to letting go of relationships, whether it's with a family member or a friend, and definitely intimate relationships, because there's a part of us that longs for some sort of understanding or explanation. And one of the things that I have learned is that we cannot get closure from someone else. And the more you try to do that, it puts you back in that situation of interacting with that person, keeping that person in your life. They can tell you whatever it is that you want to hear or not. And then you're still left trying to figure things out or thinking that things are different than what they are. So it can be a slippery slope when it comes to seeking closure. So for the sake of this episode, let's talk about it from the perspective of an intimate relationship, which is something that I know we all have experienced when a relationship did not go as planned. And now you're stuck like trying to figure out what's the next step. Do you move on? Do you try to fix things? And then we get to that point where we need closure. So closure, when we think about it, is typically when we make peace with that other person, or we get their perspective, their side of the story. You know, that is typically what we think closure is, like trying to come to terms with what has happened with that person. And that's not at all what closure is. Closure is actually something that you come to a head with on your own. You have to find the strength within yourself to decide to close that book in your life, put it on the shelf, or take it out into the fire pit and light that bitch on fire and let it go. But most of the time, we are trying to seek closure from them, and all that does is it keeps you attached. It keeps you confused. It keeps you in a state of longing, and it allows that cycle of whatever, whether it's pain, whether it's confusion, whether it's betrayal, abandonment, it lets that cycle stay open because you're continuing to feed into it, continuing to think that there's something more that this person has to offer that can soothe you to the point of release. And that is just not the case, unfortunately. So closure is actually you coming to terms with the way things are now. So I was in this situation with a friend. It started out as us being friends, and then it evolved into more. And he lied to me about a whole heap of shit. And so when it all came out, I'm like, dude, what the fuck? Because before anything escalated, we were always just friends. So there was no point or no reason that they would need to lie to me about anything, because we already had like a solid friendship, or so I thought. And so I could have continued to like be like, hey, why did you lie to me? Like, why didn't you tell me the truth? Like, what's going on? Like, do you really care about me? Instead of saying like, the fact that he lied shows that he did not care about me as, number one, a friend, let alone as a romantic partner. Often like try to explain things away, or especially if you're, someone like me who's like very like caring and heart-centered and just aware, then you'll like, oh, well, this happened because, they're dealing with X, Y, and Z. When in reality, it's the fact that they disrespected us, right? So we have to just look at things for what they are. And I tell people all the time, and this is one of the things that helped me, is like looking at things by taking the emotion out of it when it comes to like romantic partnerships and things like that. So I look at it very strategically, like it is math versus this is my heart, these are my feelings, because sometimes our feelings can lead us to overlook red flags. It can lead us to overlook disrespect. It can lead us to overlook the reality of the situation. So I look at things like assets and liabilities, or typically we would call that like a pros and cons list. Like assets would be the benefits. Like what are the benefits of this person being in my life? What are the positive attributes? What ways in which are they helping me? And liabilities is like, how are they costing me? So you want to look at the ways that someone is adding value to your life or just adding to your life. And in what ways are they taking away or costing you? Those would be the liabilities. If the liabilities or the cons outweigh the assets or the benefits, that is a huge indicator that something is out of balance and something needs to shift. Oftentimes, when we can just look at a situation objectively as though we are witnessing it rather than we are in it and experiencing it, we can find the closure that way, because we can step back and say, damn, like I gave this person my all, I gave them my time, I gave them my energy, I was honest, I was open, I really, really worked at this relationship, and it's not working because they simply don't want it to. They are not putting in the same amount of effort, the same amount of dedication, care, concern into the relationship as I am. That's the closure. That is the closure. But we kind of have tricked ourselves into believing that closure comes from another person. As long as a user or manipulator can keep you holding on, can keep you thinking that there's a chance in hell that things will change, that, I'm working on myself, I just move slow, I'm trying to get my life together. You're not obligated to sit around and wait for someone to get their shit together if they're not getting it together. And one of the things too, a lot of times people are like, I'm trying, I'm working on it. Working on something actually requires the doing of the thing. Like, yeah, you're going to make some mistakes along the way, but there should be a consistent pattern of growth or evolution versus a consistent pattern of the same shit that you've been experiencing that's wanting you to step away from the relationship. So if someone is always trying to be better, if they're always trying to do better, if they're always trying to, sort things out, they're not actually doing it. There's a big difference in doing something and there's a big difference in trying something. And, if you think about it, if you really want something, you are going to do it. People give you the version of themselves that they want to give you. If they don't want to give you their all, and all you're getting from them is a little bit, and that little bit is not making you happy, that's your closure. The closure is, I want X, Y, and Z, and this person is only capable of giving me the bare minimum. That is your closure. Your closure is saying, wow, like I put time into this relationship and it really hurts me because this motherfucker's not trying. Like they're not doing any of the things that they said that they would do. I'm not feeling any better about our relationship. I'm not seeing any growth in our relationship. Things feel pretty stuck. They feel pretty stagnant. So I'm going to choose to be at peace knowing that this person cannot give me what I want, whether they can't do it because of mental or emotional reasons, or whether they just don't want to do it because their ego said, I don't want to do it. No matter what the reason is, like it doesn't even matter what the reason is, to be honest. It doesn't matter why this person can't be honest with you. It doesn't matter why they can't, be who you want them to be. What matters is that they are not it. And once you start to make peace with that and reconcile the fact that what I want is a type of person that's going to be honest, that can be loyal, that can be committed, that likes to have fun, that wants to be in a committed relationship, that enjoys conversation and is consistent, and that the person is the opposite of all of that, that is your closure. You have to find peace in who they are. You have to find peace in what you've experienced with them. And you have to find the strength and the peace in moving on from that. And that's where closure comes from. Closure comes from accepting the reality of the situation, accepting that no matter how much you love this person, no matter how much you love that man, no matter how much you love that woman, they're just not capable of being who you need them to be. And it doesn't matter why. Seeking the why, like trying to find out the why and the understanding, will drive you bananas because you'll never know why. It will never make sense. So you just have to find peace in knowing like, hey, I tried. I did all that I could do. And it doesn't mean that you have to hate this person. It doesn't mean that you have to go bash them, on social media or start, talking shit. None of that. You can just be like, you know what? This isn't going to change. And I care about you, but I love myself more. And so I'm going to step away. Like, you can still have conversations with this person, but you now know that there is a limit to how much of you that you can give this person. You cannot continue to overgive in any type of relationship because it will drain you mentally, physically, emotionally, financially, spiritually, in all the ways it will drain you. Coming to a place of closure is like you setting up a boundary that says, our relationship is not what I thought it was going to be. It's not what you told me it was going to be. So now I'm enforcing this boundary where you no longer have access to that part of me. You no longer have access to me in the same way. And I'm choosing to release any and all expectation of you because you have proven to me that nothing is going to change and be consistent in that change. Because let's be real, people can fake growth and change for a period of time, whether it's, a month, a couple months, a few months, and then all of a sudden they go back into that same behavior. Why? Because they haven't changed. And so you keep coming back to them seeking closure. They keep telling you, oh my gosh, like, I'm gonna work on it. Things are going to get better. And you give them a chance, only for 6 months later, you're back in the same situation. And so that's why I say you have to step away and take an objective look at things. Like, what is the pattern in that relationship? Is it that things go great and then all of a sudden, like, things get bad? And if you start to pay attention to the cycles, you'll notice whether it's like, okay, we're good for a couple of weeks and then shit goes crazy. Then we spend time trying to make up for another week or two. And then we're good for a couple weeks, or maybe it's months, or maybe it's a year. But my thing is, if you're in a situation and you're not sure what to do, look at the history, look at the pattern of your relationship. If you have spent 6 months trying to convince someone to do better in your relationship, to treat you better, to take things to the next level, and they're like, yeah, we're going to do it. And another 3 months go by, another 6 months go by, and nothing has changed. You want to be mindful if you have the time and the energy to continue putting into something that's not changing. Because what's going to happen is a year is going to go by, 2 years, 3 years is going to go by. And where are you going to be? And so, even for me personally, that's what I look at. Can I deal with this shit for another 3 months? Can I deal with it for another 6 months? If our relationship has not evolved from where it is in another 6 months, how am I going to feel about not getting the things that I desire and deserve in a relationship? And so once you start getting very clear that you deserve to receive, the love and the support that you want in a relationship, and you start to come to terms with the fact that this person is not giving it to me. It doesn't matter why. It doesn't matter the reasons why. It doesn't matter, that they're dealing with issues, because we all have our own issues. And if that person is not actively working to resolve their issues through, therapy or coaching or whatever means, they don't have any intentions on growing or changing. And the more you stay in that situation, the deeper and deeper you get rooted into it. And it makes it harder for you to let go and find peace. And so I think if we even talk about closure and just giving it a different name, I think it's more of a state of you finding peace within the ending of a relationship versus that thing that's going to make you close the door altogether. Because when you truly love someone, you're always going to have that love in your heart. And whether they look at you that certain way, or you see that little glimmer in their eye, or that smile, or that apology, or whatever it is that they do that can melt your heart, they're going to worm their way right back in. And then you'll be like, fuck, I thought I was done with this person. And here we are a year later, and I'm still depriving myself of the love that I really desire. And so to find closure, you have to be at peace with knowing that this person did the best they could, however they showed up in that relationship. And you have to make peace with, like, this is who they are. It's not the potential that you saw in them. It's not the person that they promised you or the things or experiences they promised you. Who they have been consistently, that's who they are. And if you know that that is not something that you want to continue to tolerate, you have to find peace with that in yourself. And that can be a painful pill to swallow, to say this person that I loved so deeply, this person who I thought I really, knew, this person who I loved and who I wanted to spend my life with, who I wanted a healthy relationship with, like, they're no good for me. And if I continue on this path with this person, I am not going to get the things that I desire in a relationship. This is not a healthy relationship. This is not a healthy partnership. This isn't something that can sustain me because I'm giving too much and not getting enough in return. And when you can start to solidify that in your mind and say, you know what, I love this person, but we don't need to be together. I love you, but I need to distance myself from you. I love you, but I can't continue connecting with you in this way. I love you, but we just need to be friends. Or I love you, but fuck you. Like, whichever way that comes about, that's where closure comes from. Closure comes from you knowing and believing that you are worthy and deserving of more, and allowing yourself the permission and the freedom to go get it. That is what closure is. Closure is not about having that one final conversation to put everything out on the table. Closure is about you calling a spade, you seeing like this relationship has been X, Y, and Z. And so one of the things that I do with my clients is a relationship review. And I'll share a couple of tips with you to help you kind of like find that closure yourself. But like write down the highlights of the relationship, the good stuff, the bad stuff, the ugly stuff. Write it all down. And then make peace with it. Like, okay, yeah, like, oh, we went to on a trip together and that was a lot of fun. And then we got back home and shit was not as lovey-dovey and fun as it used to be. We got into an argument on this date. He said he was going to change. I saw some changes for a little while, and then it went back to X, Y, and Z. Caught them cheating. Caught them in a lie about X, Y, and Z. Things are really great. We went on an amazing date. It was so much fun. And you'll start to see the roller coaster pattern, the ups and the downs, the ups and the downs, the ups and the downs. And it just helps to look at all of the relationship, because sometimes we only want to think about the good parts, or conversely, we only want to think about the bad parts, and thinking about the bad parts can be just as problematic as just focusing on the good parts, because then you can dig yourself into a state of resentment. And then you like, damn, like I really played myself. Like, how the fuck did I let this happen to me over and over again? And it's like, you have to remind yourself, okay, there were some good times, but we also don't want to fixate on the good times, because then it's like, dang, like, do I really want to let this go? Because we had some really great times together. So that's why I say you have to look at the entire relationship, look at the good, the bad, the ugly, and make your peace with it. Yes, we had some great times. Yes, we had some bad times. Shit got kind of crazy, but it's okay, because in comparison to the type of relationship that I want, this is not meeting my needs. And so I am choosing to let this go so that I can allow a better, more stable, more healthier, relationship in its place, or just so that I can spend time loving on myself, healing myself, loving on myself, and making sure that I don't enter into another situation like this. So just really looking at the whole timeline of the relationship, noting the ups and the downs, the goods and the bads, all of those different things. Also knowing what you want in a relationship. What type of partner do you want? And I don't mean like their physical appearance or anything like that. I'm talking about the values and the qualities. What are their belief systems? The things about a person that makes them like who they are at their core. Like, that's the important things. Yes, it's important if he's 6'5", But would you rather have someone that's 6'5" and an asshole, or someone that's 5'9" with a good heart? You know what I'm saying? A lot of times we can get hung up in the outer appearance of said person. They have to, be athletic. They have to be super tall or have amazing hair. Trust me, I get it. We all have like those things that we love, but for me, my belief and things that I tell my clients too is like, look at the qualities of a person. Are they honest? Do they care about family? Will they kick a puppy, or will they pick up the puppy and say, oh my gosh, it's so cute? Like, what are their qualities? Do they value education? Do they value the same things as you? What are their hobbies and their interests? Like, what makes them tick? Because something that looks good on the outside might not be good on the inside, and vice versa, right? It can work in the same way. Something that appears good on the inside may not be good on the outside either. But when you start to look at the qualities that make a person who they are, it's easier to, number one, avoid like red flags and traps and things like that, because you already know, like, wow, like this person, if you value family and community, and this person is like, nah, I'm a loner, I don't really deal with a lot of people, I'm not down to like be around your family and stuff like that, you already know that might be a misalignment. Are you willing to compromise having that feeling of connection and community with your family for your partner? If you know that's something you're not willing to compromise on, then it doesn't make sense for you to try and date this person to try to convert them to your value system, because they're not in alignment. And that's not to say that it can't work. It's just to say, like, it gives you a barometer to measure on. I think a lot of times we go into situations thinking we can change someone or mold them into who or what we think they should be. And that's just not the case. So knowing what are their belief systems, what are their values, that is super, super important, so that you can have a better idea or understanding of who you are getting into a relationship with. That's not to say, again, that people can lie. People absolutely do lie, but you can definitely see values in actions based upon, how they act, how they behave out in public. Like, I remember a lot of people, like, when you go on a date, they, you pay attention to how they treat the wait staff. Are they being super rude, or are they, treating them like decent human beings? How are they sitting at the table? Is he engaging in conversation with you? Or is he looking around or on his phone or flirting with the waitress? Like, all of those things matter. So, like, start to really pay attention, and even asking those questions, like, what are your values? What are your beliefs? Will tell you a lot about a person, because if they don't know what they value, or if they don't know what their beliefs are or what's important to them, they might not have ever really thought about that. And you might have opened their mind to, like, expand them to think about that. Or maybe they aren't that deep to really care or consider those things. So those are just some other things to really pay attention to. But I just want to reiterate, closure is not something that you get from another person. It's something that comes from within you. When you decide to limit or cut off access, when you decide that you no longer want to participate in a relationship or situation that's not beneficial for you, when you decide that you are done and you're able to make peace with that, and sometimes coming to that final point of closure, it's a journey, it's a process. So it's not just like you wake up one day and you're like, oh, okay, I'm done. It can be that simple, but oftentimes it's a process and it's a journey, because we have to heal. You're like, there's a grieving process that goes along with the ending of a relationship. No matter how long you've known this person, no matter how long you've, dealt with them, you're going to grieve that relationship in some way. I remember having a conversation. So when I was going to this yoga studio, and afterwards we would like just sit down and talk. And I remember she was sharing like her dating experience, one of the ladies that was going there. And, she was dating a guy for a few weeks, and he turned out to be a complete jerk. So she was like, you know what, I'm not doing this. I'm done. And, she said she felt stupid because, she felt bad and she missed him. And I was like, well, you shouldn't feel that way, because that's normal. Someone that you knew, that you developed a connection with, is no longer in your life. Like, you're going to grieve that connection, just as you would, anything else. And so I think we also need to create space to honor the fact that grief is a natural part of like ending relationships. I remember, when my ex and I broke up and he had turned into a monster, and then it was like, I didn't have the space to feel bad about it, because everybody's like, oh, well, fuck him. I don't know why you're sad, or, this, that, and the third. I'm like, well, like, I'm just trying to process the human emotions that I have. So like, we just need to allow space for humanity and realize that closure is a process. That also involves healing, that involves grief, that involves like a whole lot of different things. It's not just a simple flip of the switch, which it can be for some people, but for most of us, it's not. It's a process and unlearning. Revelations come through. You learn things about yourself, and you again have to make peace with the fact that you're letting go and you're moving on. And that can be a challenging and even scary thing. So I hope that this episode has blessed you in some way. And this is definitely something that I would love to talk about more. So if you have any questions, email hello@abundantlyeverafter.show, and send in your questions and comments for the next episode. Until next time, peace.